All right. Hello, Gemini. Welcome to your July 2026 horoscope. So, every once in a while, I come across a reading where it might feel a little bit like maybe I'm calling you out. That is not my intention. I read a chart, I see a story, and I tell that story. So, I'm just going to tell it as I see it. So, right now, we are in Mercury retrograde. Most of July, Mercury will be in retrograde in your third house. And if you watched my Mercury retrograde video, you'll know that the main theme that's coming up is sort of childhood survival mechanisms. And for you, it seems like maybe at some point in your life you encountered a circumstance where telling the truth kind of backfired, either on you or someone, and it created a traumatic experience, sort of leaving this sort of unconscious impression that sort of makes it feel like telling the truth is not safe, and you need to sort of massage the truth a little bit, massage the facts, maybe present half truths, that the deception was almost like a self protective mechanism. And this may be, you've probably for the last couple of years, now that Pluto's been moving through your ninth house here, that like you want to change your relationship to this overall concept of the truth. Maybe you may find yourself in situations where maybe you sort of fudge the facts even when you don't necessarily need to, almost like by accident, as habit. And then later you're like, why did I do that? Um, and I think this is one of those times where, there are probably a lot of people in your life, like with Venus in the fourth house in Leo. So this is kind of like an energy of, having people over to your house and having a lot good time. Like maybe your house can be sort of like the central hub for your friend circle in some ways. But you may be encountering a situation where there are people or maybe a specific person that you really want to keep getting closer to, but maybe you may have misrepresented certain aspects of your life to these people and are worried that if you get too close to them, they might find out and maybe not be all that happy about, this sort of deception. Um, so there's a desire to want to do things differently, but it's difficult because it triggers a deep seated like a feeling of like anxiety, a feeling of I need to protect myself, um, and over time it's like it's starting to create this feeling where you're being really hard on yourself now. You with Mars and Uranus in the first house, this is a really intense and powerful like Mars energy, that kind of harshness. There's like a maybe you're coming across in some ways it's like this feeling that's building up in you is kind of causing you to feel maybe a little irritable or come across kind of really intense and like direct in a lot of ways, almost like try feeling like you need to overcompensate to the other side of things to where you start feeling almost overly direct, like being too direct, as a way to almost like a self-protection mechanism. Again, I don't know, hopefully that makes sense. It's kind of, these readings can get a little complicated. Um, but let's see here. And okay, yeah. So with Neptune and Saturn up here in your 11th house, along with these two asteroids here, Pallas and Vesta, when it comes to your friend circle, your social group, there are people that you've probably known for a long time. There's some very unique characters that you tend to maybe be attracted to. The people who are, not just like follower types, like people who have like some real unique skills and talents and just way about them. You kind of like the weirdos. So I think sometimes, but it does seem like maybe with this Mercury retrograde that they may not know you quite as well as they think they do. And I feel like this dynamic is creating a lot of pressure inside of you that is kind of making you feel like you really want to just come clean about absolutely everything, but there's a deep fear that if you do so, it may backfire, and sometimes it might. People don't typically appreciate when they find out that you have not really been totally forthcoming with them. And I mean, I'm just gonna guess here with the second house, with the sun being in the second house in Cancer, maybe one of these things is that you maybe have given the impression that you might be a little more financially solvent than is accurate. Maybe out of a sense of feeling judged, or like with the sun there, there's a feeling of identifying with your financial status. When money runs low or isn't going well, there's a tendency to like really look harshly upon yourself when that happens. And then when things are going really well, there's this almost like inflated sense of self, but it's all goes up and down based on how much money you have. instead of, and when things go badly, instead of seeing it as, just a circumstance, it's a commentary about yourself and who you feel that you are. And so maybe there's a tendency or a desire to present yourself in a way that kind of makes it seem like you are kind of more well off than you are, but then there, I don't know. So it kind of seems like there could be some people who might feel a little bit deceived, like people you might have known for a long time. And even if they are not things that are typically like important, it's not really a matter of like what the lie is as much as it is that the fact that it is a lie or like a half truth. And I think the sort of catalyst for this desire to this changing of your relationship to the overall concept of truth is probably coming about because of someone close to you. There's a certain person who you care about that is kind of encouraging you or inspiring you to want to do things differently and want to change. And right now, the universe is putting you in a position where you may come across a circumstance where you may feel tempted to do that again, to use that, to use your words to kind of wrap words or paint a somewhat deceptive picture with words in order to try to protect yourself from something. Um, but I think at the same time, there's a desire to break this pattern, and it will not be, it's not a comfortable feeling. It's not something that's going to be just an easy, like, flip a switch and there and it's done. But ultimately, I mean, it does seem like if you're getting closer to somebody and there's like something you don't want them to find out about, eventually they're going to find out. And the longer it takes, and the more, and if they have to find out through anyone other than you telling them, there's going to be a much less of a chance for forgiveness and leniency. So if there is a desire to come clean about something, with Jupiter down here in the third house next to Mercury retrograde, it's probably better to just face it and say what you need to say and do it directly. You're gonna, people are going to be much more likely to kind of forgive if you come clean about it yourself because you want to, not because they found out and you got caught. These Every once in a while, I come across these readings. I feel it as I'm saying it. I'm like, I'm sorry. You're probably either gonna click away or be upset by this video, or maybe the cross watchers might be like, yeah, I knew it. But if I try to come up with like a secondary story to try to make it more general, then it just doesn't really work. It's just I see a story and I tell the story. But I mean, even more so than, other people getting upset about these sorts of things, the real reason why it's important to sort of overcome this pattern is because every time you do it, it builds up more and more pressure inside because it's related to a deep like childhood wound. I don't know what sort of circumstance may have come up, but for whatever reason, it created this feeling like, you know, being like telling the truth can sometimes lead you to like traumatic situations. Um, let's see here. Yeah, I mean, with this Chiron in the 12th house here, um, I mean, that's the deepest wound is what Chiron represents. It's like the core wound that every person has. It becomes like the cornerstone of the ego, which then goes on to create more suffering than anything else out of a, in its attempts to protect itself, it ends up creating more problems. So it's like a childhood survival mechanism that has been outgrown or is no longer serving you. Um, let's see here. So where are we at? So, I mean, if you're watching this and you feel that you're resonating with this, and there is something you really want to get off your chest, um, even if the situation itself kind of goes south, the amount of internal pressure that will be released as a result is probably worth it on its own. But this is a cycle that will continue to repeat, which is kind of what happens around Mercury retrograde, right? More often than not, Mercury retrograde brings up patterns and cycles of the past, things that have not quite been fully um, healed or absorbed into your psyche, integrated. That's the word I'm looking for. Um, and I think that's pretty much it. I'm gonna pause the video and see if there's anything else I forgot. Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking of I've met several people who have had sort of tendencies like this, and it's typically they're not like laughing about it behind your back or something. They're not just like being deceptive because they think it's fun or because it's to be like abusive or whatever. It's really it's a protection mechanism that a lot of times people really feel bad about every time you do it. There's this sense of like, ugh, like why did I do that? Why did I say that? And there's a strong desire to stop, but it's not always easy. As I was looking at this, something else kind of came to me that was a little unexpected. In ways that I'm not entirely clear on, it seems like this process, if you're able to sort of break this process, this cycle, it actually has a positive effect on your career environment. So I think subconsciously there's maybe a reluctance, or maybe your subconscious kind of manifests situations where you can't really gain too much recognition or too much like public support because there's a fear that if there's too many people, too many eyes on you, and with this, you continue to exhibit this pattern of like protecting yourself um, in that way, then it would be just too much. It'd be too overwhelming. So there's a certain like ceiling on how much success you can gain with this particular mechanism in play. But if we're able to heal it, then that block goes away, and the subconscious allows you to kind of gain higher levels of success where you are kind of more like seen on a more public level in a positive light. Anyways, that's pretty much what I've got for you. If you're not too upset with me for essentially calling you out for compulsive lying, I feel so weird making videos like this, but I just see what I see. Send me a message or leave comments, like, subscribe, check out my website. If you want to order readings, you can go there and see everything that's all the prices and offerings there. And until next time, thanks for watching. Take care.